Good afternoon, I'm Eric Doyle and welcome to OGV Energy Live, our interactive live stream show bringing you news and insight from the energy sector by bringing to life the UK's leading energy industry publication, OGV Energy magazine. So what's the show all about? Every month we bring you news, interviews and discussions with our partners from the publication, and we update you on all the latest insight and opinion on that theme for the month. So don't be shy with your questions and comments throughout. We've got some great guests coming, and we really want to test them with some excellent comments and questions. In actual fact, OGV Energy will put up a fantastic prize for the best comment of the day. Our production team, who are sitting eagle-eyed in the green room, will be watching out for the most insightful or interesting question or comment of the day, and will award a prize, a lovely prize, a half-page article or advert in the August edition of OGV Energy for your company. Isn't that great? Your management team will love it. Absolutely love it. But if you don't want to comment or ask a question, that's fine. But we would like you to let us know where you are. So if you could just drop us a little line to say, hi, I'm from here, and drop your company name in, and your marketing team will absolutely love it. So it's great for us to be able to know who we're talking to and where everyone is. This month's theme is, I'm sure you know, the offshore wind issue for OGV Energy magazine. So in a moment, we're going to kick off with our headline interview with two key players from Renewable UK, Director of Future Electricity Systems, Barney Wharton, and Head of Public Affairs, Nathan Bennett, who are both fresh from the Global Offshore Wind Conference in Manchester last week. So they'll have full of insight from that. We're then going to move on to our industry spotlight section, where we're going to interview and talk to people who are active at the coalface in that particular theme that we're talking about in offshore wind. So we're going to meet Casper Bloom from Ampleman, Andrew Johnson from Innovair, and Callum Maxwell from ProServe. Then we're going to go into one of the most popular sections on this show, which is our Market Watch section, where we get all the interesting data and analysis from Westwood Global and from the Energy Industries Council. That's going to take us up towards the end of the show, where we're going to meet Nick Sharp, Director of Communications and Strategy with Scottish Renewables. But without further ado, it's probably a good time to start our headline interview. Many of you will have heard of the organisation Renewable UK. You might know it as a trade association for wind, wave and tidal power industries across the UK. Hundreds of members from wind, wave, tidal, power generation and other associated industries. They're carrying out research. They're coordinating statistics and intelligence on marine and wind power in the UK and its waters, and also representing the members internationally. But what's in their minds right now? What's front of mind? And basically what's going on under the hood? What are the current areas of focus? And what is the view inside the organisation on the hot topics? We thought you'd like to know. So we've invited along Barney Wharton, Director of Future Energy Systems, Future Electricity Systems at Renewable UK, and Nathan Bennett, Head of Public Affairs at Renewable UK. So let's welcome them on. Hi, Barney, how are you doing?
Good, thank you. How are you?
Oh, brilliant. Thank you. Great to have you here. Absolutely brilliant. I'm going to bring Nathan on right now as well. And I'm going to adjust this little setting on the screen so that we're a bit more better set up. How's that? Is that better? More comfy?
Perfect.
Outstanding. Let's take some quick notes and just see who's joining us from where. First in was, Hamza, who is watching. Mohammed from Egypt. Hello, thank you. Omar from Algeria. Hamza is a leader at Newcastle College at a university centre. We've got Beth Alexander. Let's say hi to Beth. No one's able to hide here. Everyone gets a chance to be in the spotlight. So remember, keep your questions coming in for both Barney and for Nathan. First of all, how's life?
It's good. Busy.
Good and busy.
Yeah, there's a lot going on. So we had the global conference, Global Offshore Wind, last week, which was 2 days of fun and business in Manchester. So that was a great opportunity to catch up with the industry. Our first really big conference since COVID. So yeah, I mean, it was really excited to be out there.
Yeah, it's also it is the world's largest offshore wind conference, right. And it felt even more global than ever. I think we had around 60 different countries there this year. And as well as looking out to the world, it felt, particularly in floating wind, like the world was looking in at us, genuinely as a leader. So there's a real feel-good factor to it.
So let's come back to that very subject, because that's something that we want to talk about today. Thank you so much, and I'm glad you had a really good time in Manchester. We're going to pick up on some of those themes as we move through. So, Barney, if it's okay to come with you, your title, Director of Future Electricity Systems at Renewable UK. First question, can you bring us up to speed with what Renewable UK is all about these days, what's front of mind, and also that focus on future electricity systems? What does it mean, and what are you up to?
Sure. So, there's obviously a huge amount going on. So in terms of where we are, we're really looking forward to, in the UK, the new announcement, 50 gigawatts of offshore wind in the UK. So lots of the work we're doing is how do we deliver that? We'll talk about that later, but it's a big challenge. There are lots of opportunities there, but lots of challenges and lots of issues to resolve. So thinking about all this around grid and consenting and supply chains and how we bring all of this stuff into the UK. And then the other side of it, which is more of my role, is this future electricity system side of it. We're shifting from a fossil fuel system through to a system based on renewables, and that brings with it all sorts of other challenges around storage and intermittency and variability. So how do we integrate all of that into the wider electricity system to make sure we keep everything going on and keep costs down for consumers?
Excellent. Staying with you, Barney. Press release last week about the global offshore wind project pipeline doubling over the last 12 months, from 429 gigawatts to 846 gigawatts today. That seems like a humongous leap in a short time.
It is massive. When the paper came through from the team that put it together, I kind of saw the numbers, sort of jaw dropped. It's an insane amount of wind, but I think it shows, firstly, how much the sector has come on, and particularly given what's going on elsewhere in the world, how much people are looking towards renewables to wean themselves off gas and things. And what it also, I think, shows is, it's no longer just the kind of traditional players. It's no longer just the UK, Germany, Denmark, Norway. Brazil has the most insane pipeline. I think it's something like 170 gigawatts of projects just in Brazil are being planned, which is incredible. And then the US are now a big player, and there's loads of stuff. So it's just this huge change from just being kind of a European and actually China play to this, truly, as Nathan said, truly global industry, and super exciting.
Now, the numbers in Brazil and elsewhere in the world are absolutely staggering, but even the 50 gigawatts in the UK, how on earth do we deliver that, and how do we connect it to the grid? How does this all happen?
That is a great question. So we've got just over 10 gigawatts connected to the grid right now. So, and that's taken us 20 years to get there. We're going to quintuple, I guess, that in the next 8 years, which is huge. So the number of things we need to do. Firstly, we need to work out how we're going to connect it all to the grid. So we need to make sure we are building the connections, building the onshore and offshore networks that can connect that, and at pace and at scale. We need to actually still consent a lot of these projects. And I think it's a really interesting comparison with the way the oil and gas sector works. You have the Oil and Gas Authority doing its thing, helping consent and do the leases. In offshore wind, it's a lot more piecemeal. So it's like, how do we do all that, and how do we get those sort of final few projects through the system? And then we've actually got to build them. And so there's loads of questions about supply chain and where we're going to get the turbines from. We've got loads of growth of the supply chain in the UK, but we're not the only ones doing this. As I said, there's 800 plus gigawatts elsewhere in the world. Everyone wants turbines, everyone wants cables, everyone wants foundations. So how are we going to handle all that sort of stuff as well? So these are sort of the things that we're thinking about.
Picking up on that, Nathan, that supply chain issue that Barney touched upon there, it was a huge focus at the global conference this year, and rightly so. What is driving the focus? And I guess second question, pulling on from that, what does the real opportunity look like for UK companies? If you're sitting there as a UK company right now saying we can help you, we can get involved, what does the opportunity look like, and what's the timeline likely to be around this?
Yeah, well, good question. I mean, supply chain was such a massive focus this year, in part because of just raw commercial interest, right? I mean, the target is now 50 gigawatts, but in practical terms, it's going to take £17.5 billion of investment every year to get there. And there is such a diverse range of entry into this market. I mean, Barney was talking there about turbines and components, but actually 45% of the spend on a wind farm is on operations and maintenance. There is some parts of the sector that would usually be a niche sideline part of a conversation at global, I guess, but because of the scale of this sector, suddenly become huge market opportunities. I was talking with the minister to a couple of companies operating in shipbuilding, and to reach net zero, we're going to need 720 new service operation vessels and at least 1,600 crew transfer vessels. That is an incredible amount. It's not something that you consider a part of the supply chain within the sector, but it's certainly a huge opportunity. And I think the other part of the supply chain conversation was quite a political one, which is obviously of interest to me, which is that whilst we've got this huge commercial opportunity that comes with scaling up, we do also have unparalleled pressures on the supply chain. Commodity price increases, inflationary costs, supply chain issues. Everyone is not immune from the problems that the rest of the economy is facing. So it is difficult to scale up. And I think more than ever, government are hearing that and are interested in it and are interested in what they can do. Greg Hands, during his speech, said that supply chain was one of his key priorities and was, waxing lyrical about the roundtable he held in number 10 on supply chain 2 weeks ago to kick off this new process of that they're undertaking to analyze what more could be done for the supply chain. And for the first time, really, in my many years of being here at Renewable UK, it feels like government are seriously looking at considering fundamental reform to CFD auctions and how we procure clean energy. To date, it has been, almost entirely on price. But I think now government are really looking at, well, how can we incentivize supply chain growth as well? How can we make a healthier, more prosperous supply chain and see that as important to growth as well as just gigawatts in the water?
Yeah, absolutely. So for those organizations in manufacturing and supply and service that are out there saying, our ambition is to get into offshore wind, we're ready, we've got brilliant products and services. If they are wondering what the forecast looks like for their involvement, what's the answer to these people that are saying, let us in, we want to get involved?
Well, I think we as a trade association try and do the best that we can to help you access the market. So to sell our wares a little bit, we of course have we have an Energy Pulse database of every project that is happening around the world, the timelines of it, the companies involved in it. We have conferences like Global Offshore Wind frequently throughout the year that companies can go to. And of course, as members, we'd be happy to help make introductions. Our members ourselves, beyond our UK, do also host their own supply chain forums around projects specifically. So there is also that opportunity. But there are plenty of inroads in.
Jolly good. Thank you for that. Back to you, Barney, if that's okay. Fantastic document that came out, your roadmap to a net zero. A manifesto for a fully decarbonised power system by 2035 came out, I think it was just last week, wasn't it?
Yeah. So we published that at Global as well.
So what's it all about? What's your take from it? What should we take from it?
Well, as I was saying, we've got a lot to do. We need to completely decarbonise our electricity system by 2035. That's the government's ambition. And that means building a lot more wind. It means building a lot of other things like solar, and it means reforming markets. So really, this was sort of our take on what are the things the government do now and then over the next few years to meet that challenge, because there's a huge amount still to be done. So it is things like, let's introduce a new regulatory authority that can actually coordinate and manage the delivery of the 50 gigawatts of wind that we're going to need. And remember, we've also got to go beyond 50 gigawatts to get to 2050 as well. It's looking at how do we design and build our grid, and what's the role of the regulator like Ofgem. Let's have a net zero obligation on the regulators. So they have this sort of singular focus as well. Because at the moment, they aren't quite all pointing in the same direction. And a lot of it is about skills as well. It's about skills and development of the supply chain, because the way we're going to build everything we need to build is going to be with a highly skilled workforce. So we need to firstly support new graduates and school leavers into the industry, but also support the transition as we move away from an economy that is highly fossil fuel based. As we make that transition, how do we support the oil and gas companies and people working in that sector across into the renewable sector? So people who have been working in marine environments on rigs can be working on marine environments on floating offshore wind platforms, for example. So it's all of those sorts of issues that we need to be thinking about.
One word, if you do a little word search in that document, one word that stands out, I think for me, and I may be getting this completely wrong, but one word that stands out heavier and harder than any other report that I've seen is security. Security. So energy security, I think, is repeated more than I've ever seen before, than we've ever seen before. So I expected to see lots and lots about energy transition. I actually saw more about energy security, which made me think more about, what's going on in the world and all of that. Was there a conscious shift? Is that now a major, this whole issue of energy security for the UK moving forward? I'm guessing that's front of mind.
Yeah, I think that's I think that's at the front of everybody's mind right now. I mean, how do we make sure that we have a secure electricity supply while keeping costs down? And unsurprisingly, we think that wind and renewables have a hugely important role to play in that. We've seen we talked about the trilemma in the past. The sort of the choices between cost, decarbonisation, and security. And when I first started in the industry, it was sort of, how do you make those three things sort of, how do you manage those three legs of the stool? And it was a sort of a trade-off. And I think from our point of view now, actually, it's not a trade-off. You can have low-cost, secure power with renewables. So it's making that point and really saying that kind of the trilemma, it still exists, but it's not a trade-off now. There's it can all be resolved within a kind of a single framework.
Very good. You mentioned government policy, you mentioned government backing, you mentioned what the government needs to do. I guess that's all well and good if the government's stable and the government's still there and it's still there in the shape and form that it's in today, both in terms of whether the Prime Minister will be the Prime Minister or not for long, whether the Cabinet will be the same, whether we even have the same government. I guess my question is, we're making all these bold statements and fantastic statements about what we're going to do and what government's going to support. Is offshore wind safe from the changing winds of politics?
Yeah, broadly speaking, we're very confident that it is. I mean, there are, as many watching will have seen, a small number of Conservative MPs that aren't committed to net zero, and they do get a lot of airtime because, why wouldn't the press report on that? It's exciting. There's a backbencher willing to go out and criticize government. But actually, that small number of MPs is vastly outweighed by the number of Conservatives who describe themselves as green Tories, who are fully committed to the agenda and part of the Conservative Environment Network caucus. And particularly now when you're starting to see a lot more jobs in the sector, there's a lot of MPs who recognise that and can see the benefits. They're no longer hypothetical, they're real and lived and in their constituencies. So there's a real cohort there. So, yeah, I think we are quite lucky as a country that there aren't these big differences in our main political parties on energy and climate change that we have to worry about.
Very good. I feel so much better after hearing that. Thank you. I thought at one point you were just going to say, yes, it'll be fine.
It'll be fine.
Very well put. Very well put. Just a reminder to anyone who's watching or listening to the show, please drop a question in. We've only got Barney and Nathan with us for another couple of minutes. They'll be either glad to know or disappointed to hear. So any questions for these guys while we have them, people that are the front end of all of this this offshore wind and policy and government change and all of that. So let's ask them questions while they're here. Going back to Global, one of the most packed out events was floating wind. Huge, big interest. And I'm guessing if there are people watching that are in the oil and gas space and trying to transition and all of that whole, the subsea people, the feed people, the marine people, and et cetera, why do you think the floating wind bit was so popular? How big is floating going to be, and what does it mean for oil and gas organizations trying to make that transition?
Yeah. Short answer is enormous. I think the reason why, so one, for if you're particularly interested in floating wind to look at after, was the Offshore Renewable Energy Catapult's report on the global market in floating wind that was published alongside the conference. Basically, a third of the global pipeline of floating wind is in UK waters. So you've got 15 gigawatts leased up in Scotland, 4 gigawatts in the Celtic Sea, potentially even more this summer. You've got a government fully committed to floating. There's now a 5 gigawatt target by 2030. The minister, keen to bang the drum for it at any opportunity. And more importantly, for I think those looking at the sector, BEIS have now published their future scenarios for 2050 of offshore wind development to meet net zero, which is over 100 gigawatts. And actually, the majority by 2050 of offshore wind in UK waters is likely to be floating wind. This is going to be the norm for us, as opposed to this kind of niche, innovative product. And I think what's really exciting is that we're genuinely at a point where we're ahead of the global market for this. So not only do you have an opportunity to create a product that takes advantage of the billions of pounds within the UK market, but you have a whole global market at your fingertips that's coming forward that you can be ahead of and export into. And actually, if you needed clarity for investors, you can list them. The Catapult have listed the 54 countries you'll be exporting to. So, and I do think, as you said, I do think it is a particular opportunity for oil and gas. If you talk privately to the major OEMs and supply chain companies in the sector, there are a lot of countries that think they're in the global race to be at the forefront of floating wind. But as far as they're concerned, it's Norway, it's France, it's the UK. And the reason is that actually we've got the oil and gas sector with expertise in, floating tech and maintenance, etc., that we can diversify and bring into the sector. And that's where the real advantage is going to be.
Spot on. Just a point that's come in from Kevin. I don't think we're going to be able to answer it here, but it's a great point, and just showing the level of the roots and branches that have still to be discovered in this whole transition thing. Kevin's just pointing out that we've still got difficulties between, training programs that apply to both sectors. Why do I need a GW, a Bosiet, which are on the face of it competing rather than complementary qualifications? It's a good point and a demonstration of the fact that we have a long way to go and many avenues to examine for the whole crossover and changeover here. So thank you for that, Kevin. Remember to keep your questions coming in, folks. I guess, Barney, just to you, your feelings and thoughts on the future of the industry following last week. So you came away from there, and I'm sure as you were traveling home, you were thinking about what you just experienced in Manchester and your thoughts about what that means for the future.
So it's a hugely exciting future. I mean, as Nathan's been saying, it's growing so quickly. There are so many opportunities for developers for the supply chain. And I think everyone kind of really felt, everyone really felt the kind of sense of purpose, and it was an incredibly positive environment. On the other hand, there are headwinds. So, I think this isn't just limited to the offshore wind sector, but Nathan said commodity prices. Steel is makes up something half the mass of a turbine, is now incredibly expensive. Price of gas, you want to produce cement, is incredibly expensive. So we are seeing these supply chain pressures, and that is creating challenges in the sector. So it's kind of a mixed bag, and I think everyone's incredibly positive that we can overcome these challenges, but really cognizant of all of these issues that we need to resolve. So I came away kind of really buoyed and excited, but just thinking about how much work we still need to do.
Yeah, big time. Listen, we have reached the end of this segment. It's always a pleasure to have Renewable UK here, particularly you two chaps. We'll hold for just a couple of seconds to see if there's any other questions come in. And if we do, we might circle back on them and just even read them out, whether you're here or you've left us. But for now, Barney and Nathan, thank you so much for your time and your insight today all the best for the future. And I'm sure it's not going to be the last time we see you on this show. Always welcome here. Thank you so much, and we will catch you again.
Thanks, Eric.
Thank you for having us.
Bye, Barney, and bye, Nathan. Wasn't that great? Just a bit of a reminder on our. It's not a competition as such. It's just a nice little thing that we do. The production team here at OGV Energy give away a half-page advert or article for the best question or comment of the day for your company. So that's a nice thing. It was nice to have Renewable UK here because it just so happens that Renewable UK happen to be a partner of OGV Energy magazine, and will also be partnered in something very new and exciting, a new quarterly publication known as OGV Renewables magazine, which launches in August. And I've got a little ticker for this, and I've got a little, let me see, it's here. New OGV Renewables magazine launching in August of 22. If you'd like to be involved with this, if you'd like to be in it, if you'd like to find out more about it, contact Daniel Hyland at daniel.hyland@ogvenergy.co.uk. It's going to look a bit like this, if I can get this to work by the magics of the Restream portal. Look at that. Isn't that beautiful? OGV Renewables magazine coming in August 22, a new quarterly publication. Contact Dan at Daniel Hyland at OGV Energy if you'd like to be involved or get involved, or if you just want to have a chat about what it's all about. That's pretty much what it's going to look like, and that's it. And Renewables UK are partnered with OGV Energy and are also partnered on this new publication, so that is splendid. I'm going to take that ticker off. Just give me 1 second. There we are. Keep your questions and comments coming in because we are thrusting into the new section of our show. This is Industry Spotlight. This is where we meet the companies that are actively involved in the sector we're discussing. So people that are actively involved in offshore wind today. Let's meet first, but not. Let me see. Callum Maxwell from ProServe, Andrew Johnson from Innovair, and Casper Bloom from Ampleman. How are you doing?
Yeah, very well.
Very well, thank you.
I love the fact that you are in the garden shed, Callum. I love it.
Eric, after our short chat, I did consider moving somewhere slightly more conventional, but I genuinely thought you'd be disappointed.
We would have been so disappointed. So disappointed. It's absolutely beautiful. Pleasure to have you here, guys. Everyone well?
Doing well, yeah.
Thank you.
Excellent. Good stuff. So this is where we get under the skin. So we heard from Barney and from Nathan on the kind of government policy structure and what's going on. And now we're down in the nuts and bolts. So if it's okay, can we start in the pigeon loft and go to Callum? Is that okay? Is that all right?
Of course.
It's great to see you. It really is great to see you.
Thanks, Eric.
Would you call what ProServe is doing from oil and gas to renewables? Is it a pivot? Is it a change? Is it an alteration? Is it an additional service line? How would you describe all of this?
Yeah, I'd say it's all of the above, I suppose. It's a pivot is how we're describing it. So we're trying to align the expertise and skills that we've got from just over 60 years of the oil and gas industry. And so much of that has been about monitoring and analysing critical components and providing tools and pathways to, I guess, ease the lives of operators. And there's a lot of synergy, as you can imagine, with the offshore wind industry or the offshore renewables industry, but specifically around offshore wind. And I think Barney spoke about the growth in the sector, and how, I mean, it's almost at a point of exponential growth, and therefore, from our perspective, it's how can we support that critical infrastructure and maintaining safe, reliable operations into. I mean, some of the lease sites now are looking at 50 years, so it's a significant time you're expecting a lot of that infrastructure to survive. So ways that, so from ProServe's perspective, we've got a lot of skills and experience out at sea, so we might as well look to deploy that effectively into the offshore wind sector.
Very good. And with that exponential growth, are you genuinely seeing exponential opportunity?
I think so, yeah, absolutely. So I suppose from our perspective, we've gone out to the industry, tried to get the voice of the industry, voice of the customers as we see them, what is the biggest bugbears. And so we talk about the growth from the research that we've done. We're anticipating something like 150,000 kilometers of cable being laid in the next within the next decade.
150,000 kilometers.
150,000 kilometers. And when we were looking at cable failure rates and the cost of failure, if an inter-array or an export cable goes down, depending on the failure, you're looking at the millions into the tens of millions of pounds for intervention. So from our perspective, from ProServe's experience in integrating different systems, we saw subsea cable failure as an opportunity for us to enter the market, but not just enter it, to try and move the needle. And we spoke a lot, or have spoken a lot about, existing maintenance strategy, and where we're really trying to push that needle is into condition-based approaches, predictive approaches where possible, and ultimately reduce operational expenditure for the industry. And the way that we're doing that is with a system called Electro Cable Guard, which is delivered by our partner Synaptech, who've developed very cool distributed electromechanical sensing, which allows us to effectively monitor the joints and terminations in subsea cables and in the wind turbines themselves. So essentially what we're trying to provide to the industry is an end-to-end monitoring solution for subsea cables. And again, we've spoken a little bit today already about energy security, and you mentioned it yourself, Eric, and it's, if the cable breaks, you lose a lot of your security for transmitting that power. So I guess that's a key focus of ProServe at the moment.
Very good, very good. And what would you say you've got current contracts in the space? You're developing processes and equipment and services to fit in around it. What sort of, in terms of percentage of the business that we used to know ProServe of, how much of it is currently, roughly? You don't have to get into EBITDA and revenue and all of that, but what percentage of the business? What's the percentage split now from oil and gas to renewables?
Yeah, it's a really good question. It's a really good question. So we've got a couple of contracts in the book. So we've won Dogger Bank A and B with Electro Cable Guards. We've got another opportunity to demonstrate its potential for in floating wind with high wind. So I should shout out our industry sponsors, Equinor and SPR, who are completely behind what we're trying to do. At the moment, we're still at the early stages of it. So the majority of the revenue is still coming from the oil and gas side, but from the resources that we're committing to internally, gives a couple of years, and we'll give you good figures.
Yeah,
on
no
that
worries,
as well,
no worries. That's perfect. That's perfect. And we're all behind you and hoping that the insulation arrives shortly. We're all with you on that.
I'm glad we've done this in the summer and not the winter.
Absolutely, yeah, quite right. Casper, sitting there patiently in that beautiful room. Geographically, where are you, Casper? Just remind us.
I'm in sunny Hamburg just now. I think we're closely reaching 30 degrees in sun. So let's get over with this so I can go outside.
Yes, exactly. Many people will know Ampelman and what Ampelman have done and what they're edging towards these days. Can you just give us a bit of an elevator speech on what Ampelman are doing, and then talk about developments and innovation and latest systems that you guys are working on?
Yeah, I hope everyone knows Ampelman indeed. Yeah. We have a pretty big and good marketing team doing what they're employed to do, but in general we are supplying products and services to make offshore access as easy as crossing the street, as we say. So bringing people from a vessel onto turbines and oil and gas platforms around the globe now, and that's since 2007 now. So it's pretty decent. It's nice. Pretty similar to what Colm said. I think predominantly and finally enough more in the oil and gas sector, but we have a very growth strategy in wind. So we do much more wind now in Europe, outside of Europe, with a number of different products now. And they are historically the products were driven by hydraulics. We're moving into electric driven ones. So we have a number of systems already employed. Our flagship, the A-type, is working on a project in the Irish Sea at the moment, the first one which is electrified as well. And then we're looking at all the new W-types for these SOV fleet, which was mentioned, I think, by Nathan. Did you really say 720 SOVs? Did I heard that correctly?
Yeah, you heard it.
Incredible.
And I saw you scribbling and making a phone call really quickly.
Yeah, indeed. We just need to hire more people, I guess.
Yeah, big time.
No, that's exactly where we developed the system called W-type for fully integrated into these SOVs and built for that market to increase our share in wind as well.
Very good. And looking further afield internationally, what are the current challenges in this sort of global offshore market that you see, that you experience?
Probably that 700 SOVs are needed in the next few years.
End of.
Goodbye. I need to work then. I guess the supply chain will be interesting. We're talking about the challenges. All these challenges bring opportunities. We have the steep growth path of our governments, all of our governments, so the UK, the German, as well as the Europeans, all around the world. Brazil, as it was mentioned, but who is going to do all the work? That's the interesting thing, I believe. Do we have enough workers, enough skilled workers around the globe? And then with everything coming from COVID-19, the wars, supply chain delays, that's the challenges we as suppliers really facing. But hope we can get that sorted soon. And then we're coming back to these 700 vessels, the availability of vessels and gangway. I mean, that's a big thing to come. It's great news, actually, to hear.
Yeah, absolutely. And just in closing, you mentioned a few times that focus on sales and service. What does that mean to you? And can you elaborate a little bit on that issue?
Yeah, need to go back in time a bit. When Ampelmon was founded, or the idea of the founder in mind was to build these systems to sell them. The first project Ampelmon had was a rental system, and since then we just increased our rental fleet. So predominantly we have been renting out our systems, including operators and the whole service around it. Now we see with the growing SOV market, walk to work really becoming a normal thing in the industry that clients want to buy. They want to have their systems by themselves. They want to operate them by themselves, and there we want to transition the service part of the whole model, which we developed under the rental fleet and the rental business case, what Ampelmon is known for, being always ahead of everyone else. That's something we're now transitioning into this sales model, so to say. So even if you buy a system from Ampelmon instead of renting it, you get the same service experience. And that's really, really behind it. I think that's something we at Ampelmon can be very proud of. And that's what the industry knows us for.
Evolving into meet your clients' proper needs and evolving industry as well. Good on you, and we wish you all the best in what you're doing. Andrew, you sat there patiently. You never said a word. You sat there. You didn't complain. You just sat there and waited. And thank you so much, Andrew Johnson, Inspection Director at Innovair. How are you?
Good. Yeah, I don't have 30 degrees sun, but I do have sunshine. It's only a paltry 17 here in Edinburgh at the moment. So
it's just not good enough, is it? It's just not good enough.
But,
interesting opening headline from Nathan and Barney at Renewable UK, giving us all that insight on policy and what's coming and government support and all of that. Innovair, for anyone who's not familiar with what you guys do, just want to give us the little elevator speech.
Yeah, so obviously, if you're not aware of Innovair, we're based in Aberdeen. We're a specialist inspection solutions provider. We operate in both offshore and onshore energy sectors, and obviously today's focus with offshore wind. I guess our philosophy is to provide visibility on the condition of your kind of high-value assets. So that's through kind of trusted inspection data. So how do we do that? So typically, we use a variety of kind of robotic systems to gain access safely and efficiently to kind of remote access areas. So whether that's kind of working at height or in confined spaces or in around the kind of splash zone where the kind of structures meet the sea. So I guess in a nutshell, if you're kind of looking for remote inspection data, you're looking for an experienced service provider, and more importantly, data that you can trust, then we want to work with you for solving those kind of challenges. I know a lot of companies use the buzzword innovation and innovators, but we've got a team that get genuinely excited about kind of purposeful technology. We've got an R&D engineering team that love solving problems most of the time.
And what kind of so this robotic technology you're talking about, just in really practical terms, because this is about offshore wind, specifically in offshore wind, what kind of robotic tech do you use in that sector?
So we've got a fleet of various different technology, from autonomous drones to kind of confined space cage drones to kind of subsea cameras, magnetic crawlers to advanced NDT scanners. When we started the business in 2015, we were heavily dependent on kind of drone use, but we don't like to be labeled as a drone company anymore, because drones are just one of the tools or the vehicles that we can use to get the inspection payload or to the asset. So although there's a caveat with that, we do post a lot of pictures on social media about drones, but that's because they look great, and they look great. They take great photos as well. But
yeah, absolutely. So that whole, just homing in, I love that. We're talking about the huge big numbers in demand and supply that are coming down the pipe. Callum mentioned exponential growth. The question was asked, are you seeing, as a supplier into that sector, the amount of exponential opportunity that's should be coming with all this massive growth? And is the timeline good enough for you guys?
Oh, 100%. And I think the adoption of using kind of robots or drones for gathering inspection data is becoming much more widespread across all these operators, and they're seeing the benefits of the data that can be collected. And it's a case of that. It's a challenging environment. It's a harsh. End of the day, we've got an oil and gas background, and these wind farms are not in the most easiest and most accessible places. So it's collecting that data, and making sure you get meaningful data for that. So yeah, it's definitely an incoming industry, and it's only going to get further and further. And it's the technology is amazing that we're getting used. It's exciting times for the business as well to see and work that technology.
Very good, very good. What sort of percentage? Again, don't get into scarily, terms that are going to get us into trouble with your CFO. What sort of percentage of your business is in offshore renewables? What's the split?
I would say about 3-4 years ago, it would have been about probably 10-20%, and this year certainly it's creeping up to 40%, 50% at the moment. It's
really.
Yeah, it's a huge market for us, and we've been quite predominant in the onshore market for a couple of years, and it's just obviously now you're just replicating what we're doing in the kind of offshore market. There's obviously added challenges with that. It's not as easy just to go up and touch the turbine anymore. You've got to use kind of very like Appleman, you've got to use a kind of an access to actually get to the turbine, or SOVs and CTVs. So yeah, there's definitely an uptick in the offshore wind farm inspections and even asset inspections. That's not even blade inspections. That's the whole structure, substations, the whole wind farm life cycle.
The whole lot. I'll just throw this open. It was a question that came from a question and a comment from Kevin Morris earlier on, but it kind of struck us as being quite relevant. I'll just throw this open to the floor for anyone who wants to grab it, because you guys have multiple disciplined teams going out to work on different things. And that whole question that Kevin put about the inconsistencies, the inconsistent approach between even something as simple as a ticket, a training, a survival ticket or whatever it might be, and having these, I need this, I need that. Well, you don't have this, you don't have that. Do you guys experience this as well?
Definitely, and it's a challenge in a sense, especially when you work in both oil and gas and the renewables. And I hear the stories all the time of, you've got to go do a GWO or your BOSIT, and it's pretty much exactly more or less the same challenge, the same risks, the same modules, but it's a different name on the course. So I think there does need to be a little bit more of a kind of look at the industry to say, is it going to be the similar things that people need to be learning from, so that we can combine it into one kind of package, so that, like you say, it makes it easier for oil and gas workers to transition into that renewables market easily without having to do the training course. So yeah.
Very good. Very good. Gentlemen, you've given up your time to give us a bit of insight into what your organizations are doing. Casper, you've got some calls to make really quickly.
Yes.
Absolutely. It was a joy to spend some time with you. Please send all your thermal insulation donations to Callum in Alva.
Happily received.
Happily received. It's been a joy to spend some time with you. All the very best for the future, and we'll catch up with you guys soon.
Thank you.
Eric.
Cheers. Thanks so much.
Bye, guys. Thank you very much. Thank you. Bye-bye. And we'll just let Casper go. Fantastic. Wasn't that great to speak to? You let them off lightly. Usually these guys get grilled with really difficult questions. If you're still there, I'm sure you are, drop in as many questions as comments as you like. Remember, we've got a prize for the one that's deemed to be the most insightful question or comment. But for the meantime, we're going to push on with our show. This is some of our viewers' favorites. We get great feedback on this part of the show. This is where we get inside all the data analysis. This is our Market Watch section. So I'm going to bring on Daniel Sidwell, analyst at Westwood Global Energy Group, and Neil Golding, Director of Market Intelligence at the EIC. Daniel, welcome. It's good to have you here. Hi, nice to meet you. Very good indeed. And Neil, good to see you again.
Hey there, Eric. How are you doing?
Very well indeed. Are you still in Belgique, or are you back home?
No, I'm now back in the UK.
Back in the UK. Good trip?
Very good trip, actually. And some of what was spoken about during that last session was also discussed as well. So it's quite interesting to hear that conversation just there.
Jolly good. We'll come back to you, Neil, and thanks for rushing back to your international travel to get back on the show. Very good of you. Daniel, first time with us on the show. We're going through your colleagues at Westwood. We're just going through them.
Yeah, I'm not going to find out why.
Maybe it was all to get here. So, analyst at Westwood Global, how's life at the moment?
All good. I'm looking forward to some annual leave coming up. Can't complain.
Very good, very good. Excited for you. Now we all love a good Westwood slide deck. Do you have something that you'd like to share?
I do. So I will share my buttons first. Yeah.
And then it's over to you.
So, great. Can people see my slides?
Not yet.
I can see them on my screen. So is that a problem?
Just go down to the bottom to the share screen little icon on Restream here. There we go. We've got them now. If you want to flick it onto presentation mode. That's all right. You got it?
Yeah.
It's all over to you. It's all over to you.
Great. So, for those that have seen the OGV Energy magazine, Westwood provide an update in that magazine each month covering field development, the drilling rig market and the wind market. And I'm just going to run through giving highlights from that update. Being as the specialism this month is wind, I thought I'd begin with wind. So
excellent.
These are the figures presented in the magazine, but I was going to mention some news updates that have occurred most recently. So it's interesting to Westwood that Crown Estate Scotland have opted to double from 25 to 50 years the lease period for some of the seabed sites tendered through its upcoming targeted innovation and oil and gas auction. That followed a backlash from offshore wind developers, and essentially the complaint is that the original 25-year lease was more relevant to oil and gas timelines than wind. Another news item in offshore wind, very recently, the operators of the Troll and Osberg oil and gas fields, so that's Equinor and partners, announced a feasibility study would begin into a 1 gigawatt floating wind farm. And that the idea there is that it would be connected to the shore and then back out to the fields, to electrify the fields essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And then lastly, on the 10th of June, it was announced that there was first power from the Saint-Nazaire wind farm offshore France. So that's what I have on wind.
Very good, and thanks for that.
Found those figures interesting. So
on topic indeed.
Yeah. Now over to rigs. So forgive me, rigs are not my specialism, but I can read off some numbers. So the global contracted, I should clarify, there's lots of people in Westwood that know a lot about rigs, but maybe I'm not the most knowledgeable. The contracted Jackup count decreased to 344 in May, while committed rig count was maintained at 382. Contracted utilisation and committed utilisation were broadly maintained, and the average day rate from 32 new fixtures in May was $89,000. So that's jackups. Going over to semis, so marketed contracted utilisation has continued to increase and stands at 68% in May, and the committed rig count stayed at 67. So that's 80% marketed utilisation for semi-subs. Lastly, on rigs, drill ships. So drill ship demand remained steady, 63 units on hire, and contracted utilisation remains 81%. Committed drill ship demand stood at 72 in May, and marketed utilisation was 92%. 6 drill ships are available in the market. 5 new fixtures were recorded in May, and that totals 3 rig years awarded. There for rigs. Lastly, offshore field development. So, to run through this on the first bar chart, top left there, to talk to the offshore EP spend year to date. Westwood has recorded 18.4 billion spend year to date. That's as of the 15th of June, I believe. That accounts for 27% of anticipated for the year, of what is anticipated for the year. To move down one in terms of subsea trees, you can see 117 units awarded at the 15th of June. Notably, that's 30% year on year. So I suppose to talk to specific project sanctions since Westwood's last update. So we had Shell announce an FID on Crux offshore Australia. There's been no formal EPC awards associated with that sanctioning. However, it's understood that McDermott is a front runner there, and definitely for the jacket and the fixed platform associated with Crux. And McDermott is competing with Total Energies in a joint venture for the platform topside at Crux. There's also a significant pipeline at Crux, so 165 kilometres, and it's Allseas and Saipem that are understood to be in the frame for that. More awards. We had Saudi Aramco issue multiple what it calls contract release purchase orders. These orders totaled 1.6 billion. And so you've got 50 jackets there and 5 or so topsides initially, and those have gone to or split up between Abu Dhabi National Petroleum Construction, Saipem, as well as a consortium of Larsen and Toubro with Subsea 7. And last thing I'll say on field development, and to round off our update, another FID, offshore Angola, Total Energy sanctioned CLOV Phase 3, a subsea tieback with 5 wells. And that was awarded to Technip, and that follows a frame agreement that between Total Energies and Technip on that block specifically. So a few brownfield awards there. That's all for the update. So,
well done, you. Well done, you. I will put your slide deck. Well done. Well done. You did well. You did well. Any surprises for you in 2022 so far?
So there's been a couple of projects cancelled, basically. So I'd say North Platte earlier in the year, and also the other day Linnorm. So I think what these show is that we shouldn't get carried away with a prevailing relatively high oil price, and remember that operators calculate this field economics on a long-term basis and take FIDs on that basis. So a bit of a reminder not to get carried away with North Platte and Linholm.
Thanks for sharing your information today. That was very good of you. Despite not knowing anything, not much about rigs, you did very well. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Brilliant. Spot on. Neil, great to have you back. First question: with the continued high oil price that you've that we're now seeing, are we seeing a measure by measure increase in project activity picking up alongside it?
Yeah, thanks, Eric, and pleasure to be back on again. So certainly what we've seen in terms of new project announcements, new discoveries being made, it's been relatively quiet. But what we absolutely have seen is a pickup in activity of projects that were previously, slow going, I think it's fair to say. So one example of that would be in Canada, the White Rose extension project, where we now see the restarting of the project, and we're probably going to see that project boots on the ground restarting in 2023, and production then to start in 2026. So that's a $3.1 billion project. It's a sizable project that's moving forward. We've also seen the likes of Hail and Ghasar in the UAE, whereby ADNOC have been tendering various different EPC packages over the course of the past few years. There's now another pre-qualification process being undertaken for shortlisting EPC contractors on that particular project as well. So we're definitely seeing that pickup in activity, more tendering activity as well. We've heard there earlier from Daniel about some of those big awards that we've seen move forward, but also in Qatar, the Al Shaheen field. McDermott again has been awarded a sizable feed contract that would probably then move into an EPCIC contract on that particular field. Again, $2 billion. And we see BP undertaking feed contracts in Indonesia at the moment as well. For one such project, the Ubadari project right now, which will also impact the Tangguh LNG project. So all in all, yeah, I think that the outlook's positive, but we're not seeing the newer projects come through right now.
So we're not seeing the newer projects. Are we getting any uplift in projects moving through to FID?
Daniel stole the kind of view there. Absolutely. Yes, we've seen Crux, which is fantastic, and we've seen Clov 3. But again, it's not just around the upstream oil and gas side of things, and gas is of course critical at the moment, given the current circumstances we find ourselves in with Ukraine, and we've seen two sizable FIDs reached in the US recently. One for the Plaquemines LNG export terminal, and that's a $13.2 billion investment that we're going to see there. And then at Corpus Christi LNG, stage 3 of that particular project, Cheniere Energy have just move forward with the FID on that particular project and have given their contractor Bechtel full notice to proceed. But equally, what we're beginning to see are companies beginning to announce that they're looking to make FIDs once more. So in Romania, where we're going to see ExxonMobil move out of the Neptune project, OMV and Romgas are now looking to make an FID, a final investment decision, at the end of 2022. And that comes after the Parliament approved for the mention, like to mention a project closer to home, which appeared in the broadsheet recently, was believed by said broadsheet that Rosebank was going to move to the right. We had an event with last week confirming that the project is well and truly moving ahead, and that there are full SURF packages currently being tendered on that, and the FID for that particular project should be reached in the first quarter of 2023.
Outstanding. That's a scoop. I like it. Absolutely. We lost you a little bit there, but we were worried that you were going to be coming up with some really good news and we were going to miss it because your internet was going a bit weird. But we got it loud and clear.
Okay.
We got it. Today's had a bit of an offshore wind slant. clearly. What trends are you picking up on at EIC in that sector?
Sure. Thank you again, Eric. We're at the moment estimating approximately, if all projects move forward, that there's a requirement for, or there would be potentially 588 gigawatts of capacity additions by 2030. That will require investment of around about $1.5 trillion. There's ever increasing offshore wind targets being set. We've seen that in the Netherlands recently, where they've increased their capacity targets by 11.5 gigawatts up to 22.2 gigawatts of offshore wind to be installed by 2030. In Germany as well have increased their offshore wind target to 30 gigawatts by 2030. There's significant growth capacity. I think that's very apparent. New markets, like I say, continuing to merge. Philippines, New Zealand, Azerbaijan, Brazil, to name just a few. But we've done a bit of analysis recently as well, and what's becoming very apparent is that there could potentially, we run the risk of supply chain constraints. If all of the projects and all of the developments that we're looking at the moment go forward, we estimate there could be potentially 46,000 turbines that need to be installed. Each of those turbines would require then substructure to support it. There's the cabling that then comes with that. So if we're going to have a real issue to meet the targets that are being set globally, if we don't do anything around, building up supply chain capability, building more vessels, and there are challenges. Companies are already, like BP, are looking at building their own vessels to do the installation work as well. So it's extremely exciting market, but it's not going to be without its challenges going forward to see the realization of all of these projects.
My goodness, gentlemen, thank you so much. Do we have any questions for the guys while they're here? Let me have a little look. Hello to Connor from Asset 55 team. Good to have you with us. Hello to I think it's Nurhan who's asking a question. I'm not sure if your question's asking about the biggest offshore oil and gas segment in country and sector. Nurhan, if you could be a bit more specific, or if you're asking about renewables or both. But good to have you with us either way. You've been let off the hook. No tough questions for the analysts today. But it's always a pleasure to spend some time with you. Thank you so much for giving us your insight, and we look forward to your sections in next month's magazine. Thank you so much, Neil and Daniel.
Thank you, Eric. All the best. Bye-bye.
All right, guys. Bye-bye. Well, that was great. Thank you so much to Neil and Daniel for sharing their insight. We're moving into the last segment of our show. This is where we bring on, let me just check here. We're going to bring on Director of Communications at Scottish Renewables, Nick Sharp. Hello, Nick. How are you?
Afternoon, Eric. I'm good. Thank you. How are you?
I'm going to put us like that because we look a little better like that. It's more balanced, isn't it? Absolutely. Life treating you well?
God, no. I said I was good. Actually, I've got coronavirus, so I keep forgetting. I'm kind of almost through it, but I actually have coronavirus. So
I'm absolutely thrilled that I just proved a negative this morning. I'm absolutely thrilled with that because it's been a hard old week the previous week.
My congratulations to you.
Thank you very much. I feel as if I've won an award. I really do. So I'm guessing we've got a truly international audience here. So could you give us a little bit of an update on what Scottish Renewables is all about, how it came about, what you guys are doing, just for people who might not know?
Yeah, sure. So we're an industry body. We represent renewable energy in Scotland. Mm-hmm. We're pretty unique in that we do all renewable energy technologies. So everything from wind and solar through to offshore wind, floating, wave, tidal, heat. We do an awful lot of renewable heat. I'll talk a bit about that later. Mm-hmm. And we do all the grid and the networks and the way that power is sent across the country from our generators to the customers that need it. We're effectively a policy lobbying organization, but that's starting to move a little bit. And we can talk later, obviously, about supply chain and where that's going. We've got about 300 members, up from kind of 250 maybe 18 months ago, driven almost entirely by the growth in offshore wind that you just heard about there. So yeah, really exciting time for us, but that's who we are. We fight for a Scotland leading the world in renewable energy. We do pretty well at that. Yeah, we do pretty well. We get a lot of, in my role, I get a lot of calls from international journalists a lot of the time wanting to come to Scotland and talk to us about how we've done what we've done. It's a really strong story here in Scotland. So yeah, if you're international, come and get involved.
Come and get involved. Yeah, absolutely. Get in touch with Nick Sharp. Yeah, without a doubt. So you've been in various seats within Scottish Renewables for about 8 years, over 8 years, right? Was that your first foray into renewables, or was that?
It was, yeah, it really was. I was a journalist, and then I went into PR consultancy for a while, and then had some kind of green clients, and then moved to Scottish Renewables when, as media manager, when Renewables was having a pretty tough time in the media actually, and some negative opinions coming through, and we tried to shift that. And the thing that has made, although that did make some impact, the thing that's made the most impact is just this increased awareness of climate change and how it's going to have an effect on all of us, but also that acting now means we get an economic advantage because the rest of the world has to follow.
Very good, very good. So do you see from 8-9 years ago when you first got into it, you spoke a certain language and there was certain terminology that we used and there was certain sort of preconceptions. Is that a completely different case these days? Has there been so much learning and sort of mental transition and physical transition that people now, you're in a very different space?
Yeah, I mean, there's still some similarities from back then. You know, one of the most controversial technologies was onshore wind, because that's obviously the technology that people see that they're closest to. Approval ratings for onshore wind now are up near 70%, which you would, you know, if you were any other energy generation technology outside renewables, you would bite somebody's hand off for an approval rating of 70%. So that's changed. I think, the media attitude has completely changed. There's some analysis recently about how editorial opinion at major newspapers in the UK has shifted to be sympathetic to climate change, even at right-wing papers like the Daily Mail and the Telegraph. That's become more apparent. An energy transition is language that wasn't been spoken 3 or 4 years ago. I think just the attitude to our industry from others has completely changed as well. We're now very much mainstream, very much the energy source of the future, and that has totally shifted the dial for us. Yeah.
Wow, my goodness. We have got a little slide to show because you have a super event coming up, and I've got a slide which is going to put us off screen, but it's going to put the slide front and center. Perhaps you can talk us through what we're about to see. If I put this up, if I do this, there we go. The Net Zero Awards, the Net Zero Energy Transition Awards on the 25th of August 22.
Yeah.
What's it all about?
I suppose our energy transition work and supply chain work goes together, and that's really accelerated in the last kind of year. We created a new post for Emma Harrick, who some of you will know, to do that work. So she's spending a lot of time out on the road, up in Aberdeen, meeting companies who are part of the energy transition. And what we found is that there's a huge appetite to move across from oil and gas into renewables, putting it pretty simply. Mainly to offshore wind, but also into renewable heat as well, which I think is going to be a massive, massive employer in this country and around the world in the next 20 years. So to try and capture some of that, to celebrate some of those companies that are moving across, we've opened the Net Zero Energy Transition Awards, and we are inviting people to nominate themselves, nominate companies they work with, nominate themselves personally, projects they've worked on. They've got until 5 p.m. next Tuesday to do that.
5 p.m. next Tuesday. Is that the 5th?
Tuesday 5th. Yep. Got till 5 p.m.
I'll put it back up again. So the nominations for these categories are open, right?
So there are 8 categories there. Yep.
8 categories. Yep.
Don't think you have to pay. You don't. It's free to enter. Don't think it's a difficult process. We've had winners at our awards before who've just put in 2 or 3 paragraphs, a couple of hundred words. Don't need any more than that. Don't need a great amount of detail. Should take you less than 5 minutes, and it's completely free to do it. The day before that, as you see on the left there, we've got an energy transition seminar, which is teaching companies and individuals who aren't au fait with renewables about offshore wind, the kind of scale of the opportunity, the skills and technologies that are needed to get involved, and what they can do to actually come across to renewables and start making money. So that's the day before the awards in Aberdeen. So we'll be there.
Both events in the same place?
The awards are in the Chester Hotel. You've asked me about the venue of the seminar. I don't actually know. I'm sure it's on our website.
But definitely the awards on the 25th at the Chester Hotel in Aberdeen.
That's right, yeah.
And nominations are open. So for anyone listening or anyone who's got a friend that's not listening, but you should let them know, get in, and that's scottishrenewables.com/events. You'll find the application portal.
Absolutely. Yeah. Piece of cake. Click through, 5 minutes, totally free.
Fantastic. And are you going to make it up to the Chester Hotel for that particular event yourself?
Yeah, looking forward to it. Yeah, I think we're all spending more time up in Aberdeen now. We've got a floating wind conference in Aberdeen later in the year as well that we're doing with Renewable UK, who I know are on this call. So good to see businesses like OGV pivoting and looking at renewables. I know we're involved with the offshore wind issue in August. So good to see all that attention and plan to be spending a lot more time up in Aberdeen, certainly.
Are you talking about this offshore renewables publication? And are you talking about that one by any chance?
Almost as if you knew that was coming.
Almost as if we'd practiced this. For anyone, just while we're here, that was just a bit of fun. But this is the new OGV Renewables magazine launching in August 22. Contact Daniel.Highland at OGV Energy. You can watch this show back again and pause it there to get Daniel's email address. ogvenergy.co.uk if you'd like to be involved with that publication, quarterly renewables new OGV magazine, which is very exciting. And no doubt Nick Sharp will be splashed all over it. Fantastic. Listen, I'm just going to do this so that just in case there was someone who was like, no, I never managed to get it done. Just one more go. The Energy Transition Seminar, an intro to offshore wind on the 24th of August in Aberdeen. Venue to be confirmed. I'm sure it's on that website. And the Net Zero Energy Transition Awards, 25th of August in the Chester Hotel at Aberdeen. The 8 categories are open and you have until the 5th of July to nominate. Can you nominate other people? Do you have to nominate you can
nominate whoever you want. Nominate yourself, nominate others. We are entirely free and easy on that.
Very good. Listen, it's been a pleasure to have you with us. You have closed our show and we are bang on time. Thank you so much. We will catch up with you later. And for anyone who's going to that event, go and say hi and tell Nick that you saw him on the OGV Energy Live stream.
Certainly do. Thanks, Eric.
Very good, sir. Thank you so much. We will see you later. So that's it. We're at the end of our show. Remember, those nominations are open, and get in and either nominate someone, nominate your company, or nominate yourself. I'd like to thank all of our guests today, from our headline speakers through to Industry Spotlight to Market Watch, and with Nick at the end there. I'd like to thank our show's producers, Emma Davidson and Dan Highland, and the show's designer, Ben Mackay. We look forward to seeing you all again. A number of the themes that came up are going to harmonize really well with next month's theme. On Thursday, July 21st at 2 p.m, we're going to be back here to talk about skills and training. Skills and training is what we're going to be talking about. So if you're sitting out there and you're in that skills and training world, or you have a skills and training thing to your bow, get in touch with the team at OGV Energy and see if there's an opportunity to get involved in this. I hope you had a decent show. Thank you so much to everyone who turned up. Just going to say hi to Laura Dawson. Thank you very much. Did we have a great comment that we can talk about, or will we announce it? Dan, I'm looking at Dan, the producer, in the sidelines here and putting him on the spot. Did we have a great? I'm hoping that he types me a message here so that we can announce the winner on here. If not, we'll announce it in the chat to say who won. The winner of the comment, and I can maybe spin back to it, is this one here from Kevin Morris. Kevin, I can't see who you work for right now, but I'm thrilled to let you know that we'll be in touch to let you know that you've won your company a half-page article or advert in the August edition of OGV Energy magazine. I'm sure they'll be thrilled, and it was because of your entry today that they got that. So thank you. Thanks to everyone, and thanks for you guys turning up. Spread the word if you enjoyed it, because we love to have more people attend these if we can. Have a great time, and we will see you next month.